Hello and welcome to She the People's Women's Writers Fest for February. Women's Writers Fest is largest traveling festival focused on women and their writings. Month after month, through this festival, it has been our endeavor to bring to you new and engaging conversations. We begin today with our panel titled Art of Writing Biographies. And for this, we have two very distinguished guests with us. First up, we have Bachi Karkaria, who is a game changer in Indian journalism, having helped elevate local issues to page one and creating path-breaking brands for the Times of India group. Karkaria's books include the just published Capture the Dream, The Many Lives of Captain C.P. Krishnan Iyer, the critically acclaimed In the Hot Blood, the Nanavati Case That Shook India, the runaway bestseller biography of M.S. Oberoi, Dare to Dream, Mills, Moles and Moolah, Behind the Times, Mumbai Masti, The Cake That Walked, and the collection of her columns. We also have with us Sonu Bhasin. Sonu is one of the early and senior women professionals in the industry. Sonu led various business in senior leadership positions during her corporate career. She is the founder of Fab Family and Business. She is a family business historian and is the editor in chief of Families and Business magazine. Sonu is a business author with two best-selling books published by Penguin Random House. Her latest book is published by HarperCollins. She has been named on one of the global 100 most influential individuals for family enterprise in 2020. I'll begin this discussion, by perhaps going to Bachi first and asking over the years, how do you think the art of writing biographies has changed?
Okay, I think, I don't think it's changed that much. I think the kind of biographies that are being written is perhaps different. And I think that, basically, I think everybody does follow the pattern of trying to bring the character to life. Because ultimately, that is your agenda. It's not to be very often when there are commissioned biographies, there's that is the distinction, that there are commissioned biographies and then there are biographies you may choose to write on your own. Increasingly, there are commissioned biographies. Having said that, I think the whole genre of commissioned biographies in the hands of a competent author or an author who respects her reputation uh, have begun to be indistinguishable from biographies which were not commissioned, and they have tended to be like good stories. And in that, I will say that biographies are not really different from other kinds of nonfiction. Because ultimately, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, the ultimate baseline is tell the story.
Right. So, Sonu, I'll come to you. You are an entrepreneur yourself, has been part of the business for a very long time. I would like to know from you first, as a reader, when you are picking up a biography, what are you looking for in that book?
Yeah, so Deepshikha, what I look for in a biography is a good story. So, if I want to read about the business, if I want to read about numbers and, the balance sheet, I can pick up any financial journal, I can pick up any analyst's papers. But when I want to read about a person, about the human face behind the public persona, that's what I look for if I'm picking up a biography to read. I look for a little bit of masala as well, if possible, which is not possible in the Indian biographies, but there is masala in the foreign biographies. And I don't know why it happens. Maybe Bachi can talk about it. Looking for anecdotes and stories that bring out a, the person himself or herself, and b, also lessons. What I'm definitely not looking for is a little paragraph at the end of each chapter to say this is what you can learn from this part of the book, and these are the lessons that you need to learn. So at the end of the day, it has to be engaging, it has to hold my interest, and that can happen only when there is a good human story in the biography.
Actually, Sonu raised a very pertinent point about the masala. Now, the masala, whether you mean their sexual uh, escapades or do you mean their business? Because both were involved in the two biographies that I've written. One was on Rai Bahadur M.S. Oberoi, and my current one, that was called Dare to Dream, and this one is called Capture the Dream. I mean, it isn't supposed to be a sequel to the other, but that's the title that ultimately everyone decided on. Though it was certainly my least favorite title, and I would have liked to have had something like Curries and Caviar, because that is what summed up this very Kerala boy who was equally at home in the world of high cuisine and high luxury and stuff like that, or a less in your face one, which would have been for guest and country. So this whole business of trying to protect our public figures is an inherent trait that we have, maybe because I don't know, some respect for authority when authority does not deserve that respect. And I think that is also my other hat as a humor writer or a satirical writer, that you do, and this is something I learned from my first boss, Mr. Kushwant Singh, that you deflate all these gas bags, and you tell it like it is. And Kushwant Singh was the one who kind of threw away the rule book as far as obituaries were concerned, where you have to say nothing but good, and he would pull out all the dirt he could possibly find about the person who had died and was not there to defend himself or herself.
So, Bachi, I did not mean sexual escapades when I
Okay.
meant when I said masala.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're
But anyway,
there.
you have a nice sexy story.
Yeah, no, if they're there, it just adds a lot more color. But while masala, I mean, incidents and incidents that people may not know about, or personal anecdotes uh,
Ah.
that may bring out another side of the person or the family. And there's enough masala in everybody's life,
Yeah.
even if you keep the sexual escapades
Right.
aside.
I would like you to talk a little bit about your current book when you're writing it. I mean, even in terms of biographical writing, who are the people you use as your sounding board?
So sounding board, if you mean sounding board is different from
When,
research, you mean?
yeah, so I mean, when you've started doing the drafts and when you're writing, yeah, take us through the writing process.
So let me then just keep it separate. So research is separate. For research, I speak to a lot of people, but for my sounding board, there are only two people. One is my editor, and the other is my husband. I don't share my manuscript or my thoughts or anything with anyone except the editor and my husband. So, and they are my most, how do I put it, sharp yet supportive critics. So when they, and I also know that they have my best interest at heart, and they're not going to say नहीं नहीं बहुत अच्छा है बहुत अच्छा है. If I show it to somebody else, chances are they'll say हाँ बहुत अच्छा है. So they will tell me what works, they'll tell me what doesn't work. And I think I have three books published, fourth one I'm working on, and I think the three published books have just been enriched by their sharp critique.
So, Sonu, I was saying, tell us who your latest biography is on.
It's a biography of the founder of Modi Nagar, Gujarmal Modi. And it's the first book of the series called Entrepreneurs Who Built India. And the thinking behind this series, which HarperCollins has and I are working together on this, is the fact that we write about, or we tend to focus on the people who are successful as of now. So if you look around in the market, you'll see biographies of people who we know about. But there were a whole bunch of entrepreneurs in pre-independent India, and definitely before the liberalization set up in 1991. And they worked almost against all odds to set up the industrial base, the manufacturing base in India. But because of the way family businesses are, a lot of them are not, either they are not there as family businesses, or the business has kind of been divided and there are many, many businesses. There are very few that are still together as one. So my the attempt is to bring out the stories of such entrepreneurs who set up the foundation for the India of today.
Right. So, I would also like to ask you, when you are doing so much of research and so what everything that you come across in case of when during the process of your research, of course, in a biography, the biographer's opinion is very important, and that is what makes a book unique. But how do you make it? How do you keep it neutral?
So
So,
Deepshika, this is my personal view. I really believe that the biographers or the author's personal biases should not part form of the story, because then it ceases to be a story, it becomes a viewpoint. So I do try, very diligently to keep my personal biases out, whether they are expressed. But they do come in, and which is evident when I read the first draft. They do come in, by the way that maybe I have framed a sentence or some words that I have used. So the first time that I read through my draft, my attempt or my eyes actually focus on if there is any bias that is coming in the narration of the story. My personal views do come in strongly in the introduction, because that's when I'm talking about the book, that's when I'm talking about the person, and there, whatever are my personal views, they are reflected in the introduction. But when I start the story, I do I do try and keep it absolutely neutral. Just be a narrator of the story, totally unbiased.
yeah. So, Bachi, I'll come to you with another question. This is for our viewers. As when you are picking up a biography, how do you assess that this is an accurate description of the person?
Uh, when I'm taking it up or when I've actually written it? Or
No,
how do
I'm
I
asking
choose?
as a reader when you are reading a book,
Oh,
a
okay.
biography.
Okay. As a reader, oh, well, I mean, as a reader, I absolutely have to depend on the biographer, right? Okay, if it's a well known person and I know that, XYZ happened in his or her life and it has just not been written about, then it's different. But as a reader, even if it's a well-known person, I am looking out for what Sonu had called masala, that I don't want to read anything that I already know. And also, a lot of the time the story is known, but you are bringing your own work into it, not your biases but your own research. So whether it is a biography or whether it is another piece of non-fiction, it becomes into a work that stands by itself. And I think as a reader, that's what I want to know.
When you're bringing about bias, I'll also go to both of you and ask you about another aspect of gender. So no, I'll come to you first. As women writing about a very popular man's life, what is it that an author brings to as a woman author that you bring to their story? Does the gender of the person, the subject, and the author matter at all?
So, short answer, again, my view, it doesn't matter. What matters is the chemistry between a living person, if the biography is of a living person, of the person and the author. So, frankly, for me, if I'm asked to, if it's a commissioned book or commissioned either by the person or by the publisher, or a person, and in my first meeting, I just don't like that person, there is no way I can write a whole book. There's no way I can spend 1 year of my life researching that person, talking about that person, spending time with that person. So to me, gender is it doesn't matter, but what matters is the chemistry rapport between the family or the person and the author.
Yeah, so another question, if you find something which is not in part a public domain, but you feel compelled that the person that the audiences should know about it. Like Bachi has already mentioned how things worked out in the Oberoi story. So have you ever come across a situation like that, and how have
Yeah. So see, the whole point of writing a biography is to cull out these, not very well known facts, stories about the person or the family. And my experience has been that uh, you know it's the person who doesn't have a problem with the story being told. It is the people around them who kind of say, no, don't write that, or or if they've said something about the person, and when I send it back to them for a factual check, they say, no, but that is not what I meant, and you've misquoted me, and this is not what so it is a delicate balance, because the idea of right. So I'm not in the business of investigative journalism. I am a storyteller, and also the idea is not to bring out only the negative points. The idea is to present a balanced picture. And here, and that is when I said, initially, that we don't seem to have enough masala in the Indian publications. I think it's the publishers who don't want to get into any litigation with the person. Overseas, I don't know how it works, but there the biographers can get away with blue murder, it would appear. But here, you people around the person actually walk on eggshells. The publishers walk on eggshells. Their legal departments walk on even more delicate eggshells. So it's a very delicate balance. So there are ways that you kind of tone it down, or you try and tell a story in which it is hidden. uh, but yeah, it is a challenge. It is a challenge.
So actually, if I may say, just add to what Sonu said about, what is the problem here when it's not elsewhere. I think we just, all of us, suffer from this great sense of very thin skins, and we do not know how to be irreverent about anybody. And the media succumbs to that, publishers succumb to that, writers succumb to that, because ultimately, if the publisher will not accept it and their legal cell, starts, raising cane, or, this has happened to just so many biographies. You just can't do it. And I can tell you that in the media also, that is the same thing which applies. Whereas you read the foreign press, look at the way they talk about their political leaders. They don't pull any punches. And I think it's a very healthy, a very, very, because you start portraying them as gods, they begin to think they are like gods. Then you start doing self-censorship, which is the biggest danger of all.
Yeah.
uh,
So,
so
what I don't want, and you asked what do you look for in a book when you pick up. What I don't want to read about is a saint-like figure, like a Pavam guy who's only done good in his life, who's done nothing wrong either in business or in his personal life. And I'm saying his because there are very few women
Yes,
biographies there.
yes,
So
yes.
I don't want to read about a pavam kind of a person. I do want to read about a real person,
right.
and which is what it should be the endeavor of the authors to bring about, to show a real person, because nobody will believe that there's a person who's only
Right.
done good in his entire life.
Right. So,
In fact,
you know,
in my credits, I've
I,
written that a halo is not an essential accessory to a biography. In fact, it just shouldn't be there, right?
yeah, right. So, I'll just quickly like to take some closing comments on a very important topic. I think we do get a lot of biographies where the subject is a man. Are we seeing a shift where there is conscious effort of chronicling, of talking about women's lives? Is there a shift as people who have spent so much in the time in the industry? Do you both observe a shift at all? I'll
So
come to you first and then take.
Yeah. So I'll go first. because for me, I think the answer is easier because I write about family businesses and business people. In this world, in the world of family businesses, there are very few women business owners or the matriarchs, and therefore, perforce, most of the biographies that are written are of men. uh, if you look around even today, there are very, very few women successful entrepreneurs. And therefore, in the business world, there is much, much, much more written about men than women. But in Bachi's world, the politics and the arts and the other world, I'm sure that there are more women who are at positions of success and power.
Yeah, there are, but I don't think that. I mean, I would love to tackle. In fact, even in business, now there are powerful women, but I think at the moment they still don't. There's there's so much surrounding the path of a woman to power that she doesn't then want that to get jeopardized in any particular way. Now, Arundhati, of the State Bank.
Yes, yeah, Arundhati.
So she has written her autobiography. In fact, she had asked me at that time, and but I was working on, I think, the Nanavati book at that time or something else, and unfortunately, I had to say that, look, can you give me time? Then I would be very happy to do it. But but I mean, I don't know. Again, all the kind of red flags that you raise, Sonu. I think there would be, many more in the case of writing a biography of a woman.
Yeah, because you see, if a man's reputation has to be protected, the woman is even more. I mean, she needs to be protected, whether the woman wants it or not. But certainly, her family, her kids,
Yeah,
her husband, her grandchildren, they don't want a word,
right,
going to
right,
be portraying her as
right.
anything except, yeah.
So, we are running out of time. We would need to wrap up, but I think I'd love to have this conversation again with both of you and then talk more about at some point when you have written biographies about women and we talk about have this conversation again. So, thank you both for joining us today at Women's Writers Fest, and I wish you good luck with your new books.
Thank you, Deepshika. It was a pleasure. And thank you, Bachi. It was a pleasure. And,
Yeah,
love to
it was
do
good.
this.